It began with the little things, so small, they barely registered at first. Olivia had always been meticulous with her routines. Morning coffee at 7:30, gym on Tuesdays and Thursdays, a movie night every Friday. But lately, David had noticed inconsistencies. Her phone, once left casually on the kitchen counter, was now always face down or tucked into her pocket. She laughed more at her texts, not with the kind of joy that invited sharing, but with the quiet, secretive kind that left him on the outside. She'd started wearing perfume again, the same one she wore back when they were dating. At first, David thought it was for him. He even complimented her once, saying she smelled incredible. She smiled vaguely, almost as if she hadn't heard him, and kept scrolling through her phone. Tea dinner, she was distant. Present, yes, but emotionally elsewhere. Conversations were shorter. Intimacy had become sporadic. He told himself it was stress, work, hormones, anything but what his gut had begun whispering in the dark. David wasn't ready to believe it yet. But the first cracks had started to show. David didn't go looking for the truth. It came to him, as truth sometimes do, wrapped in coincidence. One evening while Olivia was in the shower, her laptop chimed with a message. David was in the middle of making tea when he heard it, just a soft ping. Harmless. But something about the sound made him glance over. The screen was open. A preview of a message flashed in the corner. Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you. It was from someone named A. His stomach twisted. The cursor blinked in the corner of the login screen. She'd always trusted him with her passwords. They'd shared everything once. He hesitated for a moment, then typed the old password. It didn't work. She had changed it. He sat back, heart pounding. Not because he had been denied access, but because she had deliberately kept him out. Olivia rarely changed passwords. She often joked she couldn't remember them even if she did. Now, for the first time in 12 years of marriage, she had something to hide. The kettle whistled. The bathroom door creaked open. David stood still in the kitchen, hands clenched, around the counter, and quietly turned off the stove. He didn't ask her about the message. Not yet. He needed to know more. David wasn't proud of what he did next, but he told himself it was necessary. Over the next few days, he began paying closer attention. He wasn't snooping, at least. That's what he told himself at first. He was just observing. Olivia had started staying late at work more often, claiming deadlines or impromptu meetings. She guarded her phone like it held state secrets, always on silent, never left unattended. Once, during breakfast, she received a message and quickly flipped the phone over without looking up. Her hand trembled just a little. That was the moment. Something hardened inside David. He waited until she was in the shower again and took her phone from the nightstand. It was locked. Not just with a fingerprint, but a 6-digit passcode now she used to let him answer her calls when she was driving. Now she ignored them entirely, even when they rang through the Bluetooth in the car. One night, unable to sleep, David went down to the garage and sat in her car. He turned on the dashboard system and opened the recent calls. There it was. Evan. 3 calls that week. One at nearly midnight. He didn't recognize the name. But he'd never heard her mention an Evan before. His hands went cold. It wasn't proof, but it was enough. Enough to change his doubt into suspicion, and his suspicion into certainty. Something was happening, and he couldn't pretend anymore. A week later, David got the confirmation he didn't want. He left work early under the pretense of a dentist appointment and parked across the street from Olivia's office. He felt ridiculous at first, like a jealous teenager playing detective. But the feeling didn't last. At 5:46 p.m., Olivia exited the building. Not alone. A tall man in a dark blazer walked beside her. Clean-shaven, confident smile, familiar in a way David couldn't place. Evan, he assumed. They weren't just walking, they were close. Too close. Their body language told a story David didn't want to hear. She laughed at something he said, touching his arm lightly. He touched the small of her back in a way that was unmistakably intimate. Then, they kissed. Brief, but real, not the kind of kiss you give a friend or a coworker. The kind that happens when no one is supposed to be watching. David's breath caught in his throat. He instinctively raised his phone and snapped a picture. His hand trembled as he looked down at the screen, the image now captured, frozen in time, a moment he could never unsee. He sat in the car long after they walked away, phone in his lap, stomach churning. There it was. Proof. And with it came the collapse of something sacred. David waited until the house was quiet that night. Olivia. was in the living room, curled up on the couch with her laptop, pretending to work. The television was on, but she wasn't watching it. David stood in the doorway for a moment, just looking at her, this woman he had shared a life with, built a home with. And yet now, she looked like a stranger wearing his wife's skin. He cleared his throat. "We need to talk." She glanced up, startled by his tone. "What's wrong?" He didn't sit. He pulled out his phone, opened the photo, and turned the screen toward her. Her face changed instantly. Her lips parted slightly, eyes wide, not in confusion, but in recognition. She said nothing for a long time. David finally broke the silence. "How long has it been going on?" Her shoulders sagged as though someone had just punched the air out of her. "David, how long?" he repeated, voice low but sharp. Olivia looked down, unable to meet his eyes. "A few months," she whispered. "It wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't plan it." He laughed bitterly. "You don't accidentally kiss someone in the street." "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said quickly. "It just happened. I was lonely. You were always working. We stopped talking. I felt invisible." David stared at her, heart pounding. "So your solution was to find someone else? To lie to me?" "I didn't want to lose us," she said, tears forming now. "I swear. I kept thinking I'd end it. I just didn't." He stood there in silence, her words echoing in the hollow spaces between them. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. But something in him had broken. The hours after the confrontation passed in slow motion. Olivia cried. David didn't. She tried to talk, to explain more, but David wasn't listening. Not really. Her voice became background noise to the roaring in his ears. Every word she said sounded like a justification, not an apology. He heard things like, "It wasn't serious. I didn't sleep with him until later. I thought it would stop on its own. You were so distant. I felt like you didn't even notice me anymore." David didn't respond. He couldn't. That night, he didn't sleep in their bed. He laid awake on the couch, staring at the ceiling, the room pitch black except for the blinking of the Wi-Fi router. His mind ran in loops. How could she do this? Was it something I did? Am I not enough? How long has our marriage been a lie? He wondered how many times she had come home after seeing him. How many times she had kissed him and then kissed David goodnight without blinking. That thought cut deeper than he expected. In the morning, Olivia tried to approach him in the kitchen. "I want to fix this," she said softly. David turned to her with eyes that no longer looked like her husband's. "I don't even know who you are anymore." Over the following days, the house became a quiet battlefield. No shouting. No slammed doors. Just silence. Thick, suffocating silence. They coexisted like strangers, careful not to brush shoulders in the hallway. Every conversation was short, mechanical. Questions about groceries, bills, schedules. Nothing personal. Nothing real. Olivia tried. David could see that. She cooked his favorite meals. Left little notes on the table like she used to, though. They now felt hollow. Once, she reached for his hand while passing him a cup of coffee, but he pulled away instinctively. Her face crumpled, but she didn't say anything. David, meanwhile, was drowning. On the outside, he functioned, went to work, answered emails, smiled at coworkers. But inside, everything was unraveling. Trust, once so firmly rooted in their marriage, had been ripped out by the roots, leaving only doubt behind. He thought about Evan constantly. What did he have that David didn't? Was he funnier? More attentive? More alive? He even searched the name online one night, trying to match a face to the pain. When he finally found Evan's LinkedIn profile, he stared at it for nearly an hour. There he was. A real person. A man who had stepped into his life, into his marriage, and stolen something David thought was sacred. He didn't sleep that night either. A week after the confrontation, Olivia asked the question David knew was coming. They were sitting in the living room, each in their own silence. The television played something neither of them was watching. Olivia muted it and turned to him. Her eyes red from crying earlier that day. "Do you want me to leave?" David didn't answer right away. The question had been burning in the back of his mind since the moment he saw the photo. Part of him wanted her gone. Out of the house. Out of his sight. But the other part, the one still clinging to the life they'd built, Wasn't ready to let go. I don't know, he said finally. His voice was hoarse. I don't know what I want anymore. Olivia nodded slowly. I understand. She stood, walked to the stairs, and paused. I'm sorry, David. I really am. I never wanted this to happen. He looked up at her, searching for the woman he married, the one who used to light up when he walked into the room. But all he saw was distance. What did you want, Olivia? He asked quietly. She didn't respond. Just turned and walked away. David sat there for a long time after, the silence louder than anything she could have said. David stood in front of the bathroom mirror, razor in hand, face half lathered. He stared at himself, trying to find something familiar in the man looking back. He looked older, tired in ways that went beyond lack of sleep. The lines around his eyes, the grey creeping into his beard, he noticed it all now. He wondered if Olivia noticed too. If that had anything to do with it. He leaned closer to the mirror. Was I enough? Was I ever? In the weeks following the discovery, David's self-worth had taken a hit he hadn't expected. It wasn't just betrayal, it was humiliation. The kind that made him question his entire identity. He remembered when he first met Olivia, how she used to look at him like he was the center of the universe. They used to make plans, laugh until their stomachs hurt, talk until 2 a.m. about nothing and everything. When had that stopped? Was it when they started talking more about bills than dreams? When they became more roommates than lovers? Had he failed her too? He put down the razor, leaned against the sink, and exhaled deeply. For the first time, David realized the affair hadn't just broken their marriage. It had broken him. Olivia suggested counseling. I want to fix this, she said. Even if you're not sure yet. We owe it to what we had. David was skeptical. Part of him felt like there was nothing left to fix. But another part, quieter, more exhausted, agreed, if only to make sense of the wreckage. Their first session was awkward, mechanical. The therapist, a soft-spoken woman named Dr. Patel, asked them to talk about the beginning, how they met, what drew them together. David surprised himself by smiling at the memory. The bookstore, the rainy afternoon, Olivia knocking over a stack of books and laughing at herself. She smiled too. For a moment, they weren't broken people in a room full of pain. They were two kids who once believed in each other, but their warmth faded quickly. When it came time to talk about the affair, Olivia admitted more. He was easy to talk to, she said. He listened. I felt seen. It started emotionally, long before it got physical. David listened in silence. The details cut deep, but he stayed composed. Later, in the car, Olivia asked, "Do you hate me?" David stared out the window. I wish I did. It'd be easier than this. After the counseling session, things didn't magically get better. But there was a shift, small, fragile, but real. David started talking again. Not always about the affair, but about how he was feeling. About his anger, his confusion, his fear of losing everything. Olivia listened. She didn't have all the answers, but she was there. They began to rebuild, piece by piece. Date nights returned, tentative and awkward at first. Conversations became less transactional. Olivia deleted Evan's contact from her phone, an act that brought David a quiet sense of relief. Trust wasn't restored overnight. There were setbacks, moments when old wounds reopened, when doubt crept in, but with each honest conversation, they planted seeds of hope. David realized forgiveness wasn't about forgetting. It was about choosing to move forward despite the scars. For the first time in months, he let himself believe there might be a future, one not defined by betrayal, but by growth. David and Olivia began to rediscover each other, not the people they once were, but the ones they could still become. They took walks in the park, holding hands like they used to. They cooked meals together, laughing over burnt toast and spilled sauce. Conversations deepened beyond daily logistics. They shared fears, hopes, and dreams again. David noticed Olivia's efforts, not just in words, but in actions. She was more present, more open. And he, too, made a conscious effort to listen, to be patient with himself and her. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Olivia leaned into David's shoulder. I want to keep trying, she whispered. David smiled, feeling the weight of months begin to lift. Me too. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for now, that was enough. Just as things seemed to be improving, a sudden setback shook David's fragile progress. One afternoon, he found an unfamiliar message notification on Olivia's phone. a brief exchange with a contact he didn't recognize. His heart raced. Old doubts surged, threatening to undo all they'd worked for. When he asked Olivia about it, she admitted it was a friend from work who'd reached out about a project. She reassured him there was nothing more, but David struggled to believe her right away. For days, he wrestled with jealousy and mistrust, fighting the urge to retreat into silence again. But this time, instead of shutting down, David chose to talk. He shared his fears with Olivia, who listened without defensiveness. It wasn't easy, but that vulnerability became another step toward healing. They realized trust could be fragile, and rebuilding it meant confronting discomfort head-on. After months of therapy, tears, and honest conversations, David reached a turning point. He knew forgiveness wouldn't erase the past, but holding on to anger was a burden he no longer wanted to carry. One evening, he sat down with Olivia and said, "I want to try to rebuild, but it has to be real this time. No secrets, no distance." Olivia nodded, tears in her eyes. "I'm ready." They agreed on boundaries and communication, daily check-ins, openness about feelings, and no more hidden phones or unanswered texts. David understood this would be a long journey, but for the first time, he felt hopeful. He chose to believe in the marriage they once dreamed of and the one they could still create. Looking back on the whirlwind of pain and healing, David knew one thing clearly: betrayal changes everything, but it doesn't have to be the end. He had learned that trust is fragile, yes, but also resilient when nurtured with honesty and patience. That forgiveness isn't about forgetting, but about choosing peace over bitterness. And that sometimes the hardest battles are with yourself, not just with the other person. David's advice to anyone facing a similar storm was simple but profound: don't rush the process. Feel everything, but don't let those feelings consume you. Talk, even when it's hard. And remember, healing is a choice you make every single day. His marriage was far from perfect now. It was scarred and tested, but it was theirs, an imperfect testament to human fragility and the power of second chances. And for David, that was enough.